This looks like some sort of like witch's potion. Hi friends, I'm going back to my roots, no pun intended, and making a resin terrarium. It's a terrarium that will live forever. This is also the first time that I have attempted a large sphere mold. In this project, I had to do 2 of these because the first one majorly screwed up. I did a big resin no-no that I knew I shouldn't have done, but I did anyway because that's who I am as a person. I just love collecting dried mosses and twigs. I just want to live in here and I just want to live in here. Now lichens are interesting because they're not plants and they're not mushrooms. They're kind of a mix of the two. So they're really interesting little beans, and the structures of some of these are just incredibly gorgeous. Also stay till the end because I'll show you a nifty little crystal ball stand that I made from trash. It's called upcycling. I'm gonna start off by getting a black, super black base for the ground, for the dirt. Next, I'm going to find the perfect moss specimens. So I actually traded a box of moss for a pin a while ago. It's a pretty sweet deal to me because I don't have access to these beautiful lichens in my area. I'm trying to pick the perfect twigs to go in my little terrarium. This is pretty cool stuff. I have no idea what this is, but it's like pink and it looks like a little flower. How amazing is that? All right, so I have an assortment. I think these are gonna fall to the bottom, so I'm not gonna pick those. This one for sure. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? This one right here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of build up a base. Random twigs. I think they're going to float. That actually will work in our favor. So what sucks is once you get it in the black, you can't really undo that because it'll stain it. Pretty good, and we'll let this cure and set and then finish the rest later. Alright, so this is cured enough to the point where I can manipulate it, and if I pour another layer of resin on top, it won't mix. I'm just gonna pop off these little guys. Next step is to take the top here and create the seal. There we go. Careful not to unmold the bottom. And the next step will be to pour in the top of the resin. Time to fill this baby up. I'm not saying that I don't trust the seal on this mold, but I don't trust the seal on this mold. Just gonna put her in this cup in case there is spillage. So I'm going for a spooky look. So this is slightly darkened. My colors have been giving me a really hard time recently, so I have no idea if this is going to stay this color, but whatever. Wow. I just need a tiny bit more to fill it all the way up. There are some bubbles coming up, which is good. The seal is holding, I think. So good news is the mold didn't leak. bad news is my resin overheated. So it solidified much quicker than I wanted it to. Yeah, I'm pretty much thinking this is garbage. Yeah. I think what I'm gonna have to do for the next one is pour in layers, and that way hopefully that will avoid these bubbles. Maybe seal up some of these lichens with a preliminary coat of resin. Let's try again, shall we? So the lessons learned from last week is to never mix up a super large batch of resin. This will accelerate the heat reaction process and your resin will harden literally within minutes. I had to throw this one in the fridge because it started getting super hot. And I don't want that to happen again because it just froze. Instead of degassing, it just froze all these bubbles in time. So yeah, I should know better by now, but you know, I guess it takes me a while to learn a lesson. So what I'll do is I'll separate smaller batches into cups and not let them stand in the cups for as long. I'm gonna start on my dark base that will simulate the soil. Don't want to use too much of this stuff because it will affect the curing time, and a little will go a long way. And let's try this again. So what I did last time is I kind of filled it up with little twigs, and then on top of those twigs I was able to set down my ground, like sort of like a forest floor support system, if you will. This looks like some sort of like witch's potion at this point. Nothing wrong with that. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is pour another layer of resin, just enough to cover these kind of porous, spongy, holy lichens and get a nice coating on them so that they don't produce bubbles once I pour the rest of the resin in. And this time I'll be doing it in small batches or layers. So not to overheat the resin and have to go through what we did last time with the thermal reaction and the resin overheating. So after this cured, I was ready to put on the top portion of the mold and pour to the top. I did 2 pours, well actually 3 if you count the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, because I learned my lesson. If you pour too much at one time, it's gonna overheat. And at the top here I just did, when it cures it can shrink a little, so I just filled the top with a little UV resin and I'm going to demold. It looks a lot less bubbly than the last one. Ooh, it's beautiful. It looks kind of yellow. I'm not sure where that's coming from. Maybe it's just picking up the color from the actual mosses. And there's the black layer. Few little bubbles here, but they're not super noticeable. You can also kind of tell where the UV resin. But all in all, I'm way more happy with this than the previous trial, and I think I might make a little base stand for it. So we need to make a stand for this guy. At first I figured I would just use a piece of a toilet paper roll. That works, but it wasn't really dramatic enough for me. So I cut off the bottom of this cup, and to make it pretty, I'm going to hot glue twigs around it to make it look so natural. Now what I gotta do is trim off the sticks that are too big. A little gluey around the bottom here. Comment below if this is something your mother would do. Now there are a few imperfections that could be perfected. To avoid these little bubbles, I could have used a pressure pot, and I could have sanded and polished this center line away. But boy, is this better than this one. And that's what crafting is all about. Failing and learning from your mistakes and becoming a better person. Also, making mistakes and fixing them and then never completely finishing your project. Can you be a crafter and be a perfectionist? I don't think you can. You would just always be so disappointed. Well, anyways, thanks for watching, and please subscribe for more mediocre crafting content. Hit the like button so YouTube knows what's up, and have fun crafting and making mistakes and fixing them.